Susan with Susan's Country Living. Welcome to my channel. I'm glad you stopped by. Today we're doing a little food preservation. We're going to be canning some Lady cream peas. Now normally I would grow cream peas or zipper cream peas, but this year I just didn't get to it. So we have a local farmer who grows these, and I went by and picked up they were already shelled. I think there were about 4 pounds of these, and we're going to can them up today. So what I'm doing right now is going through and have a colander, and I'm just washing them and picking through, because sometimes you'll find some that are rather dark. Might find pieces of the pea hull, because these were machine shelled. They have a machine that shells them there, and you might find just some little debris in there, and that's expected. Like something like that that's very dark. I don't want that, so I'm just getting rid of those. Anything that looks like something that I don't want in my canning jar. Now a lot of these are green because they just go through the fields and pick them. When I do it, I wait till I know that the pod is ready, so that the pea will be a creamy color. You can see there's a difference between the green and the cream, and the cream color really gives you the best flavor, but I'm not going to be picky about that because I didn't grow any this year. I did grow last year. I do have my speckled butter beans though. So I'm going to get these washed up. I've got 6-pint jars in my toaster oven getting warm. I've got some water boiling. I have my canner ready. I have another pot with water for the lids, and we're going to get these washed up and then fill our jars. Okay, so I took my jars out of the toaster oven. They're nice and hot, and they were already cleaned and washed. I'm going to be using my Ball Blue Book for black-eyed peas, crowder, and field peas. Those are all southern peas. You can even can dried peas and dried beans. I do have a video on that, I believe. But these are going to be fresh, and they're going to be ready to just dump out of the jar and heat them up for a meal. They normally, if I was to freeze these and then in water and then put them in a pan, it would take time for the ice to melt. Add some water to it and take about 40 minutes to cook them. So this is a big time saver right now for later in the year when I'm back at work and I need a quick vegetable for a side dish. So we're going to go ahead and get these jars filled up. We're going to leave 1-inch head space, so on your 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and then 1 inch. So if you rested this top ledge on the top of the jar, 1 inch would be here. Now, you don't want to pack these. You don't want to shake them down. You just want to fill them to 1 inch, and that's it. We'll be adding some salt and some boiling water, but these will swell a little bit. So, you need that head in, and you need that space where they're not packed together. So I'm going to put 1 cup. Probably be about a 1 3/4 cup. So that is a 1-inch head space right there. One-inch head space. I hope I don't get siphoning, because I do want the water to totally cover the peas. Turn that off. And my water's boiling, so I'm going to cut that down. Siphoning occurs that's where liquid comes out of the jar in the canning process when your temperature fluctuation is too much during canning or pressure fluctuation during canning, not letting the canner come down to zero pressure by itself. You don't need to help it. But even when I do that, I sometimes still get siphoning. Now, I have this All-American canner, which was my grandmother's. My Presto this morning, I got it out. It holds 8 or 9 pint jars. The seal around the gauge is shot, so the gauge just came right off. When I checked it, a good thing I checked it because it had shot off. But I had this one that when my grandmother passed away, I was the only one that wanted it. So it only holds 6 pint jars. So I'm probably going to have to do more than one batch, but that's okay. I'm glad I have it to fall back on. I've got to order a new little replacement part for that Presto. I recently finally replaced the gasket. I'd used, over 20 years worth of use. That's going to happen. They wear out, but that's why we have replacement parts. I'd love to have one that I can double stack. I haven't had the All-American. There's been a learning curve for me on that. Getting it level and around when I put the lid on, and I haven't been very successful with it, but I'm going to keep trying, because they are supposed to be, top of the line, best canner. Well, I might be able to do all these. Alright, so I'm going to steal from each of the jars. So that's perfect for what this canner holds. So I'm just going to take a little from each jar, because this is enough for my husband and I. It's just the two of us. Alright, so I've got my peas in my jar, and I'm going to add half a teaspoon of salt. I use Redmond Real Salt. You want to use a salt with no additives to it. You could use kosher salt, sea salt. Last year I did no salt. So I'm going to add about half a teaspoon. Fill up our jars with the boiling water up to 1 inch headspace. Find one of these old coffee pot percolators. They are great for this kind of job. Now, I know I don't have a 1 inch headspace on all these, but I'm going to get rid of the bubbles. So what you do is just, you go through, because you don't want any bubbles down below. This is just going to force that air that's down in there to the top. And we'll be adding more water. Then this time I will measure. These smell so good. Yeah, a southern meal would be these lady cream peas, some baked corn that's been scraped off the cob, some cornbread, collard greens, a little ham in your collard greens or even in these peas, some hot pepper sauce or chow chow, some fresh tomatoes, banana pepper. That's good southern summertime food, but we have it during the winter, except for the fresh tomatoes. All right. So I need to add more water, so I'm going to do that. Up to 1 inch. All right. So we're ready to add our lids. But before we do that, I'm going to add a splash of white vinegar to my canner. Just keeps the calcium deposits from building up. I like to wet my towel that I'm going to wipe the rims with a little bit of vinegar. Even though pouring it the way I did, they're probably super, super clean. Rims wiped off. I used to use the Tatler lids on these, but I found that if there is any siphoning and the foaming part, when you cook peas, they'll foam. I don't know if that's the carbohydrates in them, the protein. I don't really know what that is caused from. Maybe someone could comment that does know. And when I've had seal failure because something got in between there, the seal and the top of the jar, and over time when it started to decompose, the seal would fail. And if I didn't catch it within that day, then I lost that jar. I had the same thing happen with corn. So I don't use the Tatler lids anymore with corn and peas. I do with green beans, and they do great. Carrots, anything like that that doesn't foam up or have that thick starchy, it could be the starch coming out. All right, so we've got our rims all clean, ready to put our lids and fans on, get them in the canner and add our water and seal our canner up and get started. I've been buying those 4 jars lids, and they do real well. You want to put just finger tight. Sometimes my rings don't always match the jar very well. There we go. Just finger tight, where when you turn it, it spins. Only had 6 jars. There we go. All right. Okay, so we have them here in the jar, or the jars in the canner. I'm going to space them. And they're just right. And I'm going to use the water that I had boiling. It's hot. Get that lid off here. And I can kind of see the line that's in there from previous times that I've canned. Or there was a line there already from my grandmother. So that you have plenty of water in the canner, about 2 inches deep. So about that deep is getting it to where the gap between the lid and the pot is even, so that I don't get loss from the steam leaking out. Okay, so with the All-American canner, you've got an arrow on top and a mark on your pot, so that when they match up, these little clips come underneath this. This is heavy, heavy aluminum. So what I look at is this distance here. See, it's close here, and on this side, there's a little more distance, because this, you can see that see how that does. So I want to get the distance the same. And there's no gasket for the seal. Let me come around to the side. It's metal on metal. So it's really important you take care of that rim so that you don't get any nicks, which could cause a problem. And then I have oiled it. That seems to help. That's what the instructions said, is you take opposite and on each side, opposite each other, and then here. And I'm not cranking it down hard and all the way yet. All right. And I check to make sure I still have that even gap between the lid and the pot, and I'm going to tighten this. Tighten them on opposite sides. Now this heat expands, which causes the seal. Now I'm going to check my distance again. This one, with the Presto, I just put that lid on, no big deal. But here, you got to really check. All right, so it looks like I'm ready. And I have a smaller burner. I have found that I can control the pressure better on this back burner, because my front burner has a lot of BTUs, where my back burner is much smaller, and I like using that better. So we're going to turn this on your All-American. This needs to be up. It's going to let steam out. It's going to let it the steam run for 10 minutes once it's going well, and then we'll flip that down and we'll watch our pressure gauge. There's no weight you put on this one. And once it gets to 10 pounds of pressure, we're going to can this for 35 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my burner and get it going. Okay, so our steam is coming out there at a pretty steady rate. So I'm going to start the timer for 10 minutes and let it vent for those 10 minutes. Okay, the 10 minutes is up, so I'm going to close the vent. And we're going to wait for the pressure. For me, it'll be at 10 pounds on the gauge, and then I'm going to adjust the temperature down just a little bit. If it goes to 11, 12, it's okay. All right, we're at 10 pounds of pressure. I'm going to go ahead and start my timer for 35 minutes. All right, so our 35 minutes is up. We're going to turn the heat off, and you just leave it alone. Don't touch it. Don't mess with that. Once this gets down to 0, then I will open up that little valve and take the lid off, and we'll see what sealed. We'll see if we had any siphoning. Hopefully everything did just perfect. I watched it diligently to keep it right there at, it was probably around about 11 pounds of pressure for 35 minutes. Okay, well, our pressure has come down, so we're going to go ahead and loosen. You always want to open it away from you so the steam doesn't come up and burn you. I've been burned by steam before, and it's no fun. Okay. Oh, I heard one seal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them over here. I have a board with a cloth on top. Just let it sit here for about 5 minutes just to cool down just a little more before I take it out, because sudden temperature changes can also cause that to siphon off. So we're going to let these sit about 5 minutes before we take them out. Okay, our 5 minutes is up, and we're going to go ahead and remove them. And I've been listening to them seal. I think that last one just did. And so we're going to lift these up. Right, so let's take a look at these. You're still going to see some boiling probably going on and bubbles coming up. That's just part of the cooling down, but they have look like they have all sealed, which is wonderful. So these are just going to sit here until they're totally cooled, probably in the morning. And I'll take the bands off and wash the outsides of the jars. And we have here now 6 meals of Lady Cream Peas. I think I'm going to have to go back to farm stand and pick up some more peas. Let's look at the water in the canner. So the water in the canner is clear. I don't think I had hardly any siphoning at all, which is great. So if you're thinking about canning some southern peas, whether it's Black Eyes, Purple Hulls, Zipper Creams, Lady Creams, I hope this helped you out to show you that it is really pretty easy. It's just the technical skill of the canning and watching that pressure. I think that's really important, just to keep that siphoning from occurring. I've had them where, you know, half the liquid would be gone, and they're still good. It's just I like them to be all under the liquid so that there's not any drying out. So thanks again for stopping by my channel. If you like what you see, give me a thumbs up, subscribe. If you'd like to be notified when I put up new videos. I do a lot of canning and preserving food that either I grow myself or I'm able to get from a local farmer. So I hope you have a great gardening and canning and food preserving season. Bye, y'all.